Our movie begins in a small village in the countryside, where a powerful storm strikes the town, toppling trees and causing widespread destruction. Many things are destroyed, and some houses are completely wrecked from the inside. The next morning, David steps outside to assess the damage caused by the storm. He finds nearly everything in ruins and notices an old, massive tree that has fallen onto their home's window. During this, his son Billy trips and falls, prompting David to help him up. Later, David takes his wife to check on the house by the lake, only to discover that it has been completely destroyed. While they are there, they notice a thick fog moving in from behind the mountain. David finds it unusual and unnatural, deciding to discuss it with his neighbors. He approaches his neighbor Norton despite their frequent disagreements, and tries to speak to him kindly. Norton mentions that his car has also been damaged, and that he's suffered significant losses because of the storm. Norton suggests they head to the city together to buy supplies for repairs, and David agrees, seeing it as an opportunity to improve their relationship. David, Norton, and Billy set off for the city in their car. On the way, they pass a large military vehicle working to fix the damage. Norton informs David that the soldiers are from a nearby military base, and mentions a secret project called Mountain Top. David starts to wonder if there might be aliens or spaceships involved, and whether the government is hiding something. When they arrive at the store, David talks to an employee and notices the place is extremely crowded. Norton thanks David for accompanying him, while Billy asks his father to help with their shopping and questions if he has reconciled with Norton. David replies that they have somewhat reconciled, but he's still not entirely sure. Shortly after, a group of soldiers enters the store, excited about leaving the city to spend their holidays with their families. One soldier tries to flirt with an employee named Sally, while a woman named Irene watches them happily. Irene asks Billy about his experience during the storm, and he recounts the damage to their home. Meanwhile, David notices a woman named Amanda watching him closely. Suddenly, another military officer enters the store and speaks to the soldiers. Moments later, sirens blare throughout the area. The officer orders the soldiers to cancel their leaves, and return to the base immediately due to an emergency. The soldiers leave, while the people in the store stand confused and worried, trying to understand what's happening. An elderly man appears outside, bleeding from his nose, and stumbles into the store in a state of panic, shouting that terrifying creatures are going to kill them all. He explains that he witnessed one of his friends being killed right in front of him. The people try to calm him down, but he continues crying and trembling in fear. He advises them to lock the store doors for their safety. Someone tries to leave the store to reach their car, but the fog suddenly engulfs the area. The group hears his screams but cannot see what's happening, which heightens their fear. The building starts shaking violently, and the store manager urges everyone to remain calm and stay in place. A woman insists on returning home because her children are there alone. At the same time, a woman named Carmody claims that the fog is a sign of death, and tells everyone that this is the end of the world. David sits with Billy and a few others, including Irene and Amanda, who offers to help calm Billy. The store owner searches for blankets to cover the young boy. David heads to the utility room and discovers that the store's generator has stopped working. While inspecting the area in the dark, he hears a strange noise. When he looks toward the back door, he sees something trying to break in. He rushes back inside and warns the others about what he saw. He insists that they check the generator and alerts them that they are all in danger. David and a group of people head to the generator room, with Jim handing out flashlights to help them see. A young man named Norm joins them to assist. They discover that something is jammed in the generator, preventing it from working, and they plan to remove it to get the power back on. David warns them about the risks, stressing that they don't know what's out there. He assures them that he's speaking out of concern for everyone, not because he's an artist unfamiliar with technical matters. Jim grows annoyed with David and tells him to stay quiet, determined to fix the problem. Ignoring David's warnings, they decide to open the door. Norm steps out into the fog, disappearing from sight. When he returns, everyone begins mocking David, thinking he was wrong, but suddenly, a strange creature appears and drags Norm back outside. The group tries to save him but is unable to fight off the monster. They are left shocked and frozen with fear. More creatures appear, attempting to break in. Meanwhile, Norm is gruesomely dismembered while still alive, making the situation even more horrifying. Someone tries to fend off the monsters, but they manage to drag Norm out completely. He clings to the door until the very last moment, as David and another man desperately try to pull him back inside. Jim and the others, however, retreat in fear and hide. As the number of monsters grows, David is ultimately forced to let go of Norm to save himself. Norm disappears into the fog, screaming, while the others rush to shut the door. David uses an axe to fight off one of the creatures, cutting off part of it before the door is completely sealed, providing temporary safety for the group. David furiously blames Jim, attacking him and holding him responsible for what happened. Others step in to break up the fight and calm the situation. Afterward, the group regathers inside the store, trying to figure out what to do next. David explains everything to Norton, but Norton remains skeptical and doesn't believe him. David urges Norton to see the evidence for himself if he doubts him. David and Norton argue, with Norton accusing David of seeking revenge over a past issue. David tries to explain the situation to everyone, warning them about the monsters attacking anyone who steps outside. However, the group struggles to believe him. David decides to take the manager and a few others to the scene of the attack, where they see bloodstains and scattered remains on the ground. But suddenly, the evidence vanishes right before their eyes. After everyone returns to the store, some begin to believe David and work together to cover the windows and protect themselves. Meanwhile, Norton insists that what's happening is a misunderstanding and that there's no real danger. He gathers a group of people who side with him. Carmody intervenes and starts preaching about religion, claiming that the events are divine punishment for humanity's sins. Her words frighten the crowd, making them believe they are doomed with no hope of survival. Reba tries to silence her, threatening to throw her out if she doesn't stop terrifying the children. David takes his son to a quiet corner and reassures him, promising to protect him no matter what. Later, David speaks to the group and suggests starting a fire as a means of defense. Amanda reveals that she has a gun and hands it to Reba, who has experience using firearms. Meanwhile, Norton gathers a group of people and plans to leave the store despite David's warnings about the dangers outside. David proposes tying a rope around one person who will step out first to assess the situation before the rest leave. He also mentions a gun in his car and offers to retrieve it. One man volunteers for the task, but Norton's group insists on proceeding with their plan. The group holds onto the rope as the volunteer steps outside, but they soon hear his screams and begin pulling the rope back. To their horror, only half of his body returns, the rest having been devoured. Everyone is left in shock, realizing the situation is far more perilous than they imagined. Later, Jim and others attempt to fix the electricity and turn on the lights as a strategy to detect any approaching creatures. Suddenly, a flying creature crashes into the window, followed by a swarm of others. David notices that the lights are attracting the creatures, and then observes larger monsters attacking and devouring the smaller ones. Jim rushes to turn off the lights, but the situation worsens as some windows shatter, allowing the creatures to enter the store. David quickly devises a plan, setting the creatures on fire, killing many of them. Reba saves David's son just in time, while others help seal the openings and secure the windows. Some people start to believe Carmody's claims, convinced that this is divine punishment. David leaves his son with Amanda and ventures out with others to search for any survivors. Amanda discovers an elderly woman attempting to overdose on pills and tries to save her. David talks to the group, urging them to find a way to escape the store. They decide to go to a nearby pharmacy for supplies. Amanda warns them that the mist covers a far larger area than they realize, and that no place is truly safe. They discuss Carmody's growing influence, fearing her impact on the terrified crowd. Amanda argues that people are rational and won't believe her, but David counters that fear and panic often strip away reason. Billy, David's son, cries for his mother, and David comforts him, assuring him she is safe. As the group prepares to leave for the pharmacy, Carmody warns them that their actions will anger God further. Jessup, a soldier, joins the group, and they reach the pharmacy safely. Inside, they find numerous bodies wrapped in spider webs. Suddenly, someone grabs Jim, pleading for help. It's the military officer who had visited the store earlier. The officer apologizes, saying the disaster was caused by mistake. His eyes turn white, and spiders emerge from his face. A giant spider attacks Jim, but Reba shoots it and kills it. Giant spiders begin attacking the group, killing several members. One soldier collapses, his body overrun with spiders. The group fights back, setting fire to the pharmacy, and eventually escapes, though not without significant losses. They return to the store, screaming from the horrors they witnessed. Back at the store, David rushes to his son and embraces him. The next morning, David wakes to find Carmody addressing a large crowd, preaching to them. He realizes her influence has become dangerous, as people now believe her prophecies will come true. David grows concerned that Carmody is a greater threat than the monsters outside. Remembering the officer's cryptic words about the mist, he confronts a surviving soldier and pressures him to confess. The soldier eventually reveals that the mist was caused by a military experiment to open a portal to other dimensions, which allowed the creatures to invade their world. David informs the others, but Carmody blames the soldier, claiming his actions angered God. She demands his death as part of a sacrifice to appease divine wrath. The mob stabs the soldier and throws him outside, where the creatures swiftly dragged him away. David reassures his son, who is still terrified. The next day, he decides to escape with a small group. Carmody blocks the door, accusing them of heresy and demanding their deaths. She insists Billy should be the first sacrifice. David is forced to shoot Carmody, silencing her. He takes his son and escapes with Amanda and others. As they reach the car, monsters attack the group, killing some of them. In the end, David, his son Billy, Amanda, Irene, and Dan make it to his car. They discover the gun has only 4 bullets, but there are 5 of them. Low on fuel and with no hope of survival, David makes the heartbreaking decision to kill his companions to spare them further suffering. He shoots them all, including his son, and exits the car, ready to face the monsters. However, a military convoy suddenly appears, rescuing survivors and clearing the area of mist and creatures. David realizes, too late, that salvation was possible. Overwhelmed with guilt and grief, he collapses to his knees, screaming in despair as the film ends.